FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Dare to Discipline is a manual for child rearing, and it was written in opposition to the techniques of Dr. Benjamin Spock, who my mother raised me according to his techniques. Dr. Spock was attacked by the radical right, by Spiro Agnew as the father of permissiveness. Dobson considered Spock the real force behind the 60s and the counterculture, and he wanted to write a child-rearing manual that would restore children's respect for authority and God. But Dobson seems to hate children. I mean, if you look at Dare to Discipline, all the references to children are negative. They're little troublemakers. They're little hellions. Why? What do children represent? What did Whitney Houston say? I believe the children are our future. It was a very profound statement. Like, who else is the future? The old people? But they symbolize the future. And Dobson and this movement worships the past. So they wanted to break the will of children, to destroy the luminosity of children, to prevent children from fulfilling their essential selves. So how could they do this? He wound up writing a manual for sado-masochism with prescriptions like the following. The child should be spanked with sufficient magnitude as to make him cry. After he's finished crying, he will want to crumple to your breasts, and he should be welcomed with warm and loving arms. What is that? It's hitting and loving at the same time. It's sadomasochism. And through this manual of sadomasochism, Dobson cultivated a belt-wielding army of millions that would be the next generation of radical conservative Republicans who would usher in the Republican Revolution. Now, when I say sadomasochism, it sounds sort of funny. It might sound like I'm talking about a sexual kink, and while there are Republicans like Ted Haggard who have participated in real sexual sadomasochism, I'm talking about it in a political sense. I got this idea from a psychologist named Erich Fromm, who inspired many of the central ideas behind my book. Fromm wrote a book called Escape from Freedom in 1941 after he fled Nazi Germany, about the peril of authoritarianism in a democratic society, not because he had seen it happen in Germany. And he said that because of all the pressures in a democratic society, there will be a contingent of people who fear freedom, who can't handle free will, and they will inevitably form authoritarian structures and create an authoritarian movement. I thought he was prophetic, and he said that the essential characteristic of the authoritarian personality is sadomasochism. In other words, they're sadistic in that they want to kick down and hurt those they perceive as weaker than them, those who they perceive as deviants, foreigners, minorities, the poor, Jews, African American White House czars. And at the same time, they're masochistic in that they want to in that they want to prostrate themselves. They have this drive to bow down before strong leaders. Leaders like George W. Bush, who always spoke with total certainty and said, I do not do nuance. People like James Dobson. People like the macho Jesus from Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. Fromm called this the magic helper. He said, the reasons why a person is bound to a magic helper are in principle the same that we have found at the root of the sadomasochistic drives, an inability to stand alone and to fully express his own individual potentialities. And the magic helper provides drama and symbols that give meaning to an otherwise meaningless life.